So as I mentioned, we just launched our first seed round and we got our first investor on board now.
I was pretty shocked.
We plan to have 250,000 users on the platform.
Do you plan to switch from no code?
I must admit, I've been surprised of the scalability that it actually works, Bubble, because we got quite some users, on the app, and it works, seamlessly still. I think it's $29 per month, right? It's really, really cheap.
In this video, we would talk to Lars, who is the founder of SWOP project. SWOP is a fashion marketplace that was built with Bubble.io and published to App Store and Play Store. SWOP got early traction, got into Silicon Valley accelerator, raised seed round of investments, and today Lars will tell us how he got to this point. I hope you will enjoy this video, and let's start. Okay, Lars, can you please tell a few words about you? What's your background, and what are you doing for a living besides launching startups like SWOP?
Yeah, SWOP is a new startup that I've been part of, but for the last 25 years, I've been working with, digital development, digital campaigns, and, creating communication and business development for different clients. I've been in a lot of different agencies throughout the years, but I also worked with in different companies like Lego, and in Denmark we have this national broadcaster called TV2. And I've been fortunate enough to work with big brands like Carlsberg, Tuborg, Red Bull, Toyota, Hewlett-Packard, Royal Copenhagen. I probably forgot a few, but so I've worked a lot in international environment as well. But I always kept returning to the startup scene because I think it's to be honest more fun that you don't have these long processes from idea to actually take action on things. And sometimes when you're in big corporations, it takes longer to get things done. So
you were building apps or solutions for others, for your customers, and you decided to launch your own product.
Yeah, I used to be one of the companies I was involved in. I was a marketing and e-commerce manager for a global design brand here in Denmark. Throughout the years, ever since back in 2000, I built one of the first flash sites for Tuborg and Carlsberg. So I've always been, interested in the newest technology, but also in finding the right solutions for the clients that matches their needs. So throughout the years, I've investigated a lot of different technologies, and I built digital solutions for my clients, and it can be anything from a very simple website, but also more complex digital solutions, and then also creating the campaigns to create awareness and create sales for them. So it's the whole digital part of their presence in the market.
Do you remember the moment you came up with SWOP idea?
I actually do, because it's the idea behind SWOP was born because I got the teenagers at home who buys a lot of secondhand fashion, and I'm the one responsible for going back and forth to the parcel shop to deliver the items when they've sold something or they've picked up something. We live in the countryside, so it's not just nearby, so I have to go back and forth. And I thought, there must be a smarter way of doing this, both, in the way of, how you do the shipping part, but also the whole interface and how you communicate and how you swap or you sell your things. So, and at the same time, I saw that, Gen Z, that's our main target group. They, on the one hand, they really want to be, on the forefront, being climate warriors, but at the same time, they overconsume a lot of fashion. So we wanted to create a model where we nudge them into the right behavior. And one of the things we could do that by is by give them some, incentives to do the right thing, so they can see how much carbon emission they save if they buy secondhand fashion instead of new, and all these things. You can see that on a personal level, as a community on your school, and as a SWOP community. But actually, the interesting part of SWOP was that instead of just building it and launching it to the market, and that's why we reached out to you. We realized that there was a possibility of testing your assumptions while you're building the app with a no-code or low-code tool like Bubble. So what we did last fall was inviting a high school into a masterclass and co-creating it with us. And so what's out in the market now is this, app built in Bubble, and you did a great job by doing that. And then we tested a lot of assumptions, and now we're actually in a different place where we found out we need to do something else. But the interesting part is that, we would never have come to that conclusion if we didn't test it in the market like we did, because I'm used at working with, tools for prototyping, but that's a flat prototypes, which means you can test your design and you get some users to try to replicate what you want them to do. But here you can, do the interaction. If we do a chat on the in the app, we can see, okay, where are the pain points, or should we do something differently? You understand it in a much deeper level when you have an MVP, as we have now that you build. So for us, it's a way of fast tracking development, not only by saving time and developing, but also getting the business development done along the way. So you realize that you have some assumptions, but by co-creating in this way, you come up with completely different solutions. And I've been part of different startups, and some of the startups that some of them have done really well, but some of them has also failed. And I can see a pattern in the ones that failed was that we didn't test enough with the users, and that's one of the real superpowers I see from doing what we've done together with Bubble, creating something that can quickly go into the market and can quickly change. When we did the masterclasses in the fall, it was, remember, I had these, meetings with the students, and I said to you, can you build this for next week? And you did that. And, normally it would never be possible for you to do that. I mean, it would probably take a month before you can iterate the next, version, but we did that. So it was really good for the students to see as well that, we listened to the feedback. And then when I came back next week, they said, wow, did you build this? And that's how we, really fast tracked a lot of, a lot of times in the startup scene, you talk about failing fast, right? And that's, I'm not saying that we failed, but we tested our assumption and found out, some were right and some we needed to have another look at.
I agree that if sometimes you shut down a certain startup, it's not bad 100%, because it means you quicker came up to new startup or new idea. You spend less time testing, like you did it with no code. You managed to launch faster, to test idea faster, and it's valuable. You can now, with this output that you got, you can start new business. But let's talk about this situation, the status in SWOP a bit later, because before that, I would like to talk about what was previously, like a year ago, when we got acquainted with you. We started building, and it was during the April 2021, and then you came to me at summer. You said you got into Silicon Valley accelerator. I was pretty shocked. Can you tell a bit more about this experience with accelerator? Because this is like a great opportunity, because you've launched with no code. As I understand, it helped you to make MVP faster and apply for this acceleration faster. Am I wrong, or
no?
You're
the case? Right on the money. And the interesting part, I think, and what you're touching upon here is, one of the critical issues when you're a startup, because on the one hand, because I've been talking to a lot of investors for the last couple of months, because we're in our first seed round now, and we just got our first investment, by the way. One of the, challenges, sometimes you talk about a catch-22, meaning that, on the one hand, that investors, they say to you, oh, but we really like your idea, but come back when you have some traction. And then you're like, okay, yeah, I see what you mean, but I need money to show you traction, right? So that's really a lot of times the dilemma you have if you're a really early startup. And by doing it this way, we could show traction. We could show, a real, app in the App Store and in Google Play, and we could tweak it according to the input we got from the users. So that's definitely been very, very beneficial in the whole process, also with the Silicon Valley Accelerator program, because we wouldn't have been in that without this MVP and the whole network that you get by being in an accelerator program like the one we've been in Silicon Valley. It started like a remote thing in Copenhagen last fall, where we met with other startups, and then I was in Silicon Valley in April this year, and where we got to pitch on stage in Palo Alto to pitch night for venture capital judges. And so it has just opened so many doors for us, and we see US as a really interesting market for us because it's a big market with the same language, and we have tweaked our whole concept into blockchain and Web3 AR filters and NFTs and they are much more mature when it comes to that in the US than we are in, for instance, in Europe. So by being part of the Silicon Valley Accelerator program has given us access to also in our advisory boards, profiles that we would never have been able to attract. But because that we are part of that ecosystem, we're also part of the plug and play family now, which means that we have a much larger network than we would normally have being a startup based in Copenhagen in Europe. And it's also a way of, being able to dream bigger in the sense that they want you to really make it big and believe that you can actually make something with a real impact. And we really want to the reason why we got into that, I mentioned what with my teenagers back home, but it's also because that we want to lower the carbon emission and the wastewater that's the side effect of the fashion industry. And fashion industry is accountable for 10% of carbon emissions today and 20% of wastewater. So we really want to be part of the solution and the impact that changes the behavior. And by setting all the assumptions that we did with you in the Bubble Lab, we now realize that we need to go fully digital, based on the feedback we got from the venture capital in Silicon Valley, for instance. They said, we really like your idea. But basically what we have done is dividing it into three stages, where the first stage was, the second-hand fashion, the physical one that we built. And then we had the second stage where we wanted to apply AR filters, turning them into NFTs. And then also in the third stage, going into the metaverses and everything that's going to happen within that space. And they said to us, we really like your idea, but skip stage one, go directly to stage 2 and 3. So that's what we decided to do. So after we did that pivot, we actually got a lot of attention from investors, because there is a lot of competition within the space of secondhand fashion. Like in the US, you got Vestair, you got Real, you got Vinted, and they're really big players. And we can have the first mover advantage by going into the digital fashion. But everything, and that's the good news from us and for you as well, is that all the experience we've collected from building the app together with you and the students from the high school, we can use that in this new space. We understand a lot about, and the reason why we got into the digital space in the first place was because we co-created with high school students with Gen Z. And when we, talk to them about different perks, like, when you got into a certain level in the gamification of, how much carbon emission have you saved, you could get free shipping. We thought, that the students were not, no. Give us something, digital avatar or a digital sample from a fashion brand that we can have a cap or, whatever, something that, adds something to our digital presence. And we realized that the digital presence is equally important to Gen Z, if not more important than how they present themselves in what we call real life. And I'm not 20 anymore. So I see, the digital thing as an add-on to the real life, but it was really an eye-opener for me to understand. And there's just been a survey out here in Denmark saying that the Gen Z actually feel more confident being in the digital space than being in the real world. And another thing that's really interesting as well with what we're doing with the digital fashion and the screenwear is that there was another survey in the UK saying that Gen Z, 9% of what Gen Z buys of fashion, they only use it once to post it on social media. So we thought, okay, that should just be, screenwear, digital wear that we can add on the platform. They can actually use it. And what's really interesting to me is what you can use NFTs for and the blockchain technology, because I haven't, to be honest, I haven't been that excited about what's happening in the tech world as what's happening with Web3, because I remember back in the days, back in 2000 when the internet came and I did these flash sites, we had this idea that it would democratize, the world basically, and it didn't. But I see a strong, possibility of actually doing it now, because, for instance, what we're doing with the digital fashion design, the designers, the content creators, they will get, a fair share of, for creating the content. Every time they sell on our platform, they will get paid because it's embedded within the NFT and the blockchain contract, the smart contract. And they will also get money each time it's resold on the platform. So our platform is still the same, actually, but it's just purely digital now. And I really like the idea that, that the real heroes, the way I see it, the content creators, they get, a fair share of, creating the content. Unlike, for instance, Spotify, where you have a lot of problems from musicians that they don't get, enough payment for the streaming. And there's been a lot of talk about, App Store, they get 30%, of the turnover. It's like the mob in the old days. So here we take a 3%, or 5%, 3%, fee for these transactions. And that's much more reasonable, So I think what's happening within the Web3 space is that it will be more sustainable in the way that you will actually be able as a creator to earn money on what you're doing. And the good news for us is that most of 95% of all fashion is created in 3D software now. So that means that the content is actually out there. We just need to put it on our platform, turn it into an AR filter so that users can wear it as screenwear. And that means that the distance to the market for the creators is much shorter. I mean, if you go into the traditional fashion industry, then you have to find somebody who wants to, buy a collection, produce and distribute it, and then you can get a cut of that. Here you can just go straight into our platform, upload it, and you can earn money from it straight away.
So did I get you right that actually you make a pivot? You didn't shut down the project fully, but you want to launch some blockchain stuff within this platform, make it more optimized, digital. And from this question, I have another one. Am I correct that you plan to switch from no code to something more complex to achieve blockchain or any more advanced technology? You said you have already done some progress in digital changing the approach for pivot for the platform. So what are your plans regarding the technology? Do you plan to switch from no code, and how do you see maybe you see no code is somehow interesting for you to switch to more advanced use cases?
The solution will be built on, kind of two legs. The whole NFT marketplace will be built on the NEO protocol, blockchain protocol. And most of that is open source. So we done all of our proof of concept for that. So that's one project within the project. And the other one is building the app around it. The way we want to approach this is actually to go through Flutter with that part and the Flutter flow. I remember we talked about it, yeah, because what's interesting about that is that it actually does a lot of things like Bubble does, but then it turns it into the Flutter code instantly. And you can, attach it to the Firebase as well. We see a lot of, advantages in Bubble, for instance, and it has taken us so far now, and it's been, so valuable for what we've created so far, and we wouldn't have come to where we are now without Bubble and what you've done. On the other hand, I must admit I've been surprised of the scalability that it actually works, Bubble, because we got quite some users, on the app, and it works, seamlessly still. But on the other hand, we want to be really ambitious now, and we want to build something that's even more scalable. So that's why we want to switch now to Flutter.
Let me ask another interesting question. Let's imagine that you want to launch a native app, iOS, Android, but web app. In your opinion, would you rather go for Flutter or any other no-code platform, or Bubble? Because Flutter Flow is more for native apps, iOS. Like, we built SWOP with Bubble, but Bubble is specifically for web apps. But thanks to some third-party services like BDK Native, we integrated native functionality and published in App Store. So my question is, like, do you think Bubble, if in case you want to create have not only mobile iOS app but also marketplace, as you said, on web, on desktop, so they list all items, the NFT stuff is in the web. Would you rather choose like a platform like Bubble, or maybe custom code, or any other platform? Have you heard about other platforms?
Yeah, I know other platforms, and we did the research before we started collaborating. But definitely, if it was the web part, the marketplace in a browser, I would definitely go Bubble. I mean, it's perfect for that. We did some tweaks by turning it into an app, right, for both iOS and Android, but it works really well. I'm surprised at how well it works actually in the native app space as well.
Yeah, and interesting moment, because when you are saying you are impressed, what actually said that the students that had, like, you said you made events with students, like with focus groups, and tested, made usability tests in real time. So what was their reaction from the end users perspective?
The iOS users, they couldn't tell, they thought it was just a normal app. We had some issues with the Android app, but I'm not an Android user, so I haven't tested as much myself. But the iOS Apple version has been, seamless in the way it works. And I know that you did a lot of, optimizing. We, to begin with, we were very focused on, getting things out and, week by week. But then we did kind of a service check, right, on everything, and you did some things, and that really improved a lot of things after we did all this testing when we got into the market, and that's been really beneficial to have that optimization. So when it comes to the iOS version, I must admit I couldn't tell the difference. It's been really impressive.
Okay, and back to you said you made a research of no-code platforms before starting our collaboration. Can you tell me what was the threshold, what made you choose no-code instead of classical programming? Like back 1 year ago or 2 years ago, when you first came up with SWOP idea, why have you chosen the no-code? No-code wasn't really popular at that time. What was like the aha moment for you that I go for no-code? I don't spend money on classic development, but for no-code.
So yeah, now so you asked about, where was there a specific time, or what made me choose the low-code or the no-code platform?
Yes.
I can tell that, throughout the years, I've been looking for something like Bubble. We did some, websites for clients in Webflow. And, when I used that, I just realized, why don't we have something, similar to that? Because I'm a firm believer of, also when I do projects with clients, that you really need to test it, with a real life audience. And so we did, Figma projects, and we did prototypes with that. But it's like, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's a very flat thing. You can get, reactions or feedback on your design, but not on the real user experience and the interaction. So I've always been on the lookout for something where I could test it more in depth. And I also always been, very interested in new technology and what's happening on the tech scene. So when I heard about Bubble from one of my friends, and I remember the way he presented it to me was by saying that he developed an app for his wife, on how to water the plants. So every time she could take a picture of the plant, and it could tell, what kind of plant is it, or should it have water twice a week, a lot of water, or a little bit. And he said he probably used, I can't remember, like 25 hours or something to do it. I mean, crazy little amount of hours. And then I started investigating, and I investigated some other ones, low-code tools. I forgot the names now. But then I started reading reviews, and then we decided to go with Bubble. We did a few tests ourselves, but then we also realized we needed to call in an expert like you. So that's why I found you. And we've been really glad that we did, because I can tell that you're an expert within this field, right? And I don't think I've thrown any, challenge at you that you couldn't solve. And I think there's been quite a few, where you thought, is this possible? But you found solutions for it. So well done.
Another question is, you were using Bubble for a year. How much money do you pay Bubble to stay in Bubble, to have your app in Bubble? Do you pay thousands of dollars? How much? Do you remember?
I think it's $29 per month, right? It's really, really cheap.
And for your user base, you have more than 100 users for this money.
Yeah.
And this is seamless experience for them.
Yeah, actually, it's $29. That's including the hosting, isn't it? Yeah. So it's really cheap. I mean, I do a lot of hosting for a lot of clients with the more complex websites, and that's definitely much higher amount for that. So it's incredibly cheap also in not just in developing. I mean, you'll be surprised. A lot of developers out there, if they see how fast things can be done here and the quality of the work, but it's also actually cheap in the how do you say it? In the everyday life, not as when you're hosting it, and the maintenance part. I've been really positively surprised about what we can achieve with Bubble, and it really reduces a lot of cost, and it should be, to me, it should be a no-brainer, especially to startups. But I would say, I see, because I also do a lot of, and previously done a lot of digital projects for clients, and sometimes I would really like to show Bubble to some of the big consultants within the digital, space, because they charge so many thousands of hours, and sometimes you could have done this with 100 or 200 hours in Bubble, right, and get the same result. The only thing about Bubble, and I don't know if they will solve it in the future, is that it always has to be on that platform, right? You can't do your own hosting, if I understand it correctly. That's the only backside, flip side of the coin, as I see it. But when it comes to development and everyday costs, it's incredible.
So, saying all that, besides your plans for big marketplaces, NFT, blockchain, what are your goals, plans for 2022? I know you have registered the US company for SWOP. What are your plans for 2022, maybe 2023, with this project that you started with No Code?
So as I mentioned, we just launched our first seed round, and we got our first investor on board now, which means that we can really start to push the speeder. I would say by the end of next year, we plan to have 250,000 users on the platform. So we are really aggressive in what we want to achieve, and that's why we want to, enter the US market as well, because it's, as I mentioned, it's more mature when it comes to NFTs and crypto. We see a lot of possibilities. Actually, we just got into an accelerator program in Paris that's called Beyond, which is completely or solely focused on, on the fashion industry and in the making the fashion industry more sustainable and more digital. So we will start there in the mid of June here, and then it's going on for 3 months. And we can actually attract investors by that, because at the end of these 3 months, we will pitch where we are within the program for a panel of investors. So we see a really bright future with the things we're doing, and we have big ambitions to be the first and the most simple fashion platform for digital fashion that uses AR filters and NFTs, and doing it in a way where you can use it, as when we're sitting having this meeting, we could have a different shirt on, or you could just use it for posting on social media or whatever. So the real use case of our NFTs will not be, the speculation to earn money from it. It will be possible, but the real use case is that you can actually use it as digital fashion. You don't just buy it to speculate to get money, but after, like on the swap now, if you're fed up with the digital shirt you have after half a year, you can resell it on the platform. And the NFT marketplaces out there are really not that easy to navigate now. So we want to make it, simple and seamless. That's the two keywords we always used when I was at Lego to describe our digital solutions. So when we get into the platform, it'll be like going into a normal e-commerce fashion store, but instead it's digital fashion and it is NFTs and blockchain. But I think what a lot of people are doing wrong right now is to make it too complicated on the NFT marketplaces. And the fashion brands are making it too complicated that you have to solve riddles, and the NFTs are sold for tens of thousands of dollars. We hope that the price points will be more like $100 or $200 for the items, and then you can wear it and you can resell it. And one of the ideas we are looking into for the near future is that if you bought a shirt, you will be able to actually customize it afterwards, put some new features to it, and then you can sell it as your NFT. And if it was me who created the original shirt, I will get a payment. So you will be a content creator on top of that. And we're also planning on, and that's why we've gone into this accelerator program in Paris, to collaborate with the fashion brands so they can try different, new styles and experiment with that with up and coming designers and make, like for instance, Nike sneakers, but instead of it's the normal one, then it has all these new stitches or whatever from this designer. And if enough users vote for it, for instance, 500 say, okay, we really like this, we want to, pre-order it, then it will actually be produced in real life. So you get a limited edition of 500 of these sneakers that started there, that the concept was started on our platform. So that's one of the things we really hope to tap into in the future, because we want to get rid of overproduction. And one of the ways to do is by creating made-to-order items instead.
The interesting fact that I noticed, like you started your strategy locally in schools in Denmark. And Facebook, early on, they also started just locally in the universities. And why they ended? They're now like very big companies. Yeah. So I think you will have the same future.
We would really want to use the high schools as part of our go-to-market strategy, because the high school we've been co-creating with in Copenhagen, they have a lot of, it's like the elite high school in Denmark. Mm-hmm. So they have a lot of friends in Europe and in US. So we're already planning to actually use them as part of our go-to-market strategy. And I was actually in Palo Alto in Silicon Valley. So I was at Stanford, as you mentioned, I mean, that's just such an interesting area of, combining the high schools and the way they can influence things, the rest of the society. So we see a lot of, synergies by also using the high schools as part of our go-to-market strategy. And we actually created it like kind of a franchise where we want the high schools to, to get some benefits, but we also want them to actually achieve things for us. So we have meetings with them on a regular basis to say, okay, can you help us, achieve traction by getting these, students on board, or what can it do to your community? But, so we see it as a real asset. And that's actually been really interesting talking to investors and venture capital. They really like the idea of using the high schools the way we do. And also, of course, for getting the feedback loops like we've already done, but get it on a bigger scale but have structured feedback loops. That way is really helpful in, creating the right solution in a much shorter time.
Okay. I think it was very powerful conversation for future viewers of this video. And it will definitely let them know how far can you go with Snow Code and actually like you did. So I'm really proud of you, Lars, and really glad to work with such clients as you, and wish you good luck with SWOP. and all other projects that you may launch in the future.
Thank you very much, and my biggest credit to you and your team as well. You've done an amazing job, so I can't recommend you enough.
Thank you so much, Lars.
Okay, speak soon.